विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्र सदस्य श्रीमद एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदी नमो विष्णुपाद ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 7, Text 32. So please repeat after me. Kim Naha Tapaha Chirnam Adokshaja Archanam Purta Ishta Dattam Uta Bhuta Sauhridam Yat Sangparetah Punaha Eva Balakah Dishtya Swabandhun Pranayan Upastitah. Kingnastapaschirnam adokshajarchanam purteshtadhattam uta bhuta sauhridam yat samparetah punareva bhalako dishtya swabandhun pranayan upastitah. Kingnastapaschirnam adokshajarchanam purteshtadhattam uta bhuta sauhridam yat samparetah punareva bhalako dishtya swabandhun pranayan upastitah. Kingnastapaschirnam adokshajarchanam purteshtadhattam uta bhuta sauhridam yat samparetah punareva bhalako dishtya swabandhun pranayan upastitah. Punareva bhalako dishtya swabandhun pranayan upastitah. Purteshtadhattam uta bhuta sauhridam punareva bhalako dishtya swabandhun pranayan upastitah. Purteshtadhattam uta bhuta sauhridam yat samparetah punareva bhalako dishtya swabandhun pranayan upastitah. Mataji. नस्तपश्चीर्णमधोक्षजार्चनम् पूर्तेष्टदत्तम् उत भूतसौहृदम् प्रणयन् उपस्थितः किं नस्तपश्चीर्णमधोक्षजार्चनम् पूर्तेष्टदत्तम् उत भूतसौहृदम् प्रणयन् उपस्थितः किम, what kind of, naha, by us, tapaha, austerity, chirnam, has been done for a very long time, adokshaja, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, archanam, worshipping, purta, constructing public roads, etc., ishta, activities for public benefit, dattam, giving charity, uta, or else, bhuta sauhridam, because of love for the general public, yet by the result of which sang, even though the child was practically lost in death, punaha eva, even again because of pious activities, balakaha, the child, dishtya, by fortune, swabandhun, all his relatives, pranayan, to please, upastitaha, is present here. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Translation. Nanda Maharaja and the others said, we must previously have performed austerities for a very long time, worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, performed pious activities for public life, constructing public roads and wells, and also given charity, as a result of which this boy, although faced with death, has returned to give happiness to his relatives. Purport. Nanda Maharaja confirmed that by pious activities one can become a sadhu, so that one will be happy at home and one's children will be protected. In Shastra, there are many injunctions for karmis and jnanis, especially for karmis, by which they can become pious and happy even in material life. According to Vedic civilization, one should perform activities for the benefit of the public, such as constructing public roads, planting trees on both sides of the road so that people can walk in the shade, and constructing public wells so that everyone can take water without difficulty. One should perform austerity to control one's desires, and one must simultaneously worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, one becomes pious, and as a result, one is happy even in material conditions of life. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविकास स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। किंग्नस तपश्चीर्णम अदोक्षजार्चनम पूर्तेष्ट दत्तम उत भूत सौहृदम यत् संपरेत पुनरेव बालको दिष्ट्या स्वबंधून प्रणयन उपस्थितः। Nanda Maharaj and the others said, we must previously have performed austerities for a very long time, worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, performed pious activities for public life, constructing public roads and wells, and also given charity, as a result of which this boy, although faced with death, has returned to give happiness to his relatives. So now we are seeing here in continuation with the previous verse. So Krishna, by the will of providence, according to Nanda Maharaj and other Gopas and Gopis, Krishna was protected. He was saved. You can just imagine the situation. The boy was right there in the hands of a demon. So anything could have happened to him. So they were all completely surprised, and they are not able to. They are astonished. They are not able to perceive what kind of a great fortune this boy has got. What is the result? How this could have happened to him? And we just see in the previous verse, 31st verse. In fact, this verse 31, 32, and 33. This expresses the mood of the Gopas and the Gopis, specifically Nanda Maharaj also, wherein after Krishna was rescued, from the demon's chest, so they were all so surprised, and these three verses explain their understanding of the situation, and also we can here see the Vatsalya Bhav, how we can see in the previous verse also, and the current verse and the next verse, that how Nanda Maharaj, they are simply in the Vraja Bhav, their understanding of Krishna is that he's after all their son. He's a small boy. So we can see also in these chapters and the previous chapters also how whenever there is this kind of a reversal incident that happens, immediately Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, they offer their prayers to Narayana. Please protect my son. That shows their Vatsalya Bhav here. And also just already it was discussed on the Sunday class, just one point from the previous purport. Prabhupada makes an amazing point in the beginning of the previous purport. He speaks about the innocent devotional life. In the beginning of the purport, in the previous chapter, he says Krishna conscious life means innocent devotional life, and the sadhu is one who is fully devoted to Krishna. And we can see here the Vrajavasis. So that is their life. They are completely devoted to Krishna, and they're totally absorbed. Their only desire is about the welfare of the Supreme Lord. So they just want to see that the Lord is happy. So that sets the mood. Now, in further glorification, in the previous verse it was mentioned that again a philosophical point is established in the previous verse, that a person who is innocent and who is straightforward and who is devoted to the Lord, he will be protected. In whatever situation he may be, he will be protected. And a person who is sinful, he has to suffer for his sins. So that is why he said the demon died, because he has to face the reactions of his sinful life. And it is explained that Nanda Maharaj is saying that is the way the laws of nature work. Now in today's verse, we see again Nanda Maharaj and others were thinking how this boy was saved. This is something miraculous. We can't imagine. Now we just see in Uttarakhand that so many are being caught in the tunnel. Now when the rescue happens and then they come out, it's really a big miracle. Almost they are on the verge of death. Similarly, we can see the situation here that a small boy who is just on top of the sky, and he is just lying on the chest of the Asura. So it was a great astonishment for them. Well, for us, we are reading the Bhagavatam. For us, we know it's Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is performing amazing pastimes. But because of the effect of the Yoga Maya, all the Vrajavasis were just astonished. They still could not believe. Somehow they are happy that, Krishna was saved. Now, we see here in this verse, again, another explanation Nanda Maharaj is pointing out. So he says that, Kim, what kind of austerities we might have performed? We do not know. For this to happen, for the boy to be saved, we should have performed some great tapasya in the previous life. And then he says, Adokshaja Archanam. Tapaschirnam. Chirnam refers to for a long time, for quite some time, this has happened. The austerity was performed. And we have worshipped Adokshaja, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also he says that he further again points out some of the pious activities. Purta. So definitely we should have engaged in some construction of public roads and other welfare activities. Purta. Then he says um, Ishta, Ishta Dhattam. Yes, this word is used. For the Ishta means for the benefit of the public that is being performed. And Dhattam is giving charity. Charity has to be performed, and definitely we should have engaged in some charity. And all these things they have done Bhuta Sahurudam, out of affection for the general mass of people. So from this we understand that these are all pious activities, and these pious activities are beneficial for the human society. We will try to understand how it is. And what is the real pious activity, that also we'll try to understand. So Prabhupada, right in the beginning of the purport, he makes a point that that by pious activities one can become a sadhu, so that one will be happy at home and one's children will be protected. So what kind of a pious activity is this? By which pious activity one will be happy, and one will be happy with the family, with the children. So what is that pious activity? We need to understand. And also, right from this verse, we can just see the Vedic way of, or the Vedic outlook, or the outlook of the world from the perspective of the scriptures. So immediately it brings in a very important principle in life about that there is birth and there is death, there is going to be rebirth. So and there is karma. All these points are discussed in the last two verses, because without that, where is the question of what kind of a pious credit someone has gained, what he has done in his previous life. Because of that, he is reaping through the reactions, which could be a pious reaction. For that, he is enjoying happiness. It could be a impious activity. For that, he is suffering. So that is very clearly that principle of karma and the reincarnation is understood. Now, also Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, based on the acquired nature. In the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in 2-3 verses, Krishna explains that a person is placed into a particular kind of faith. What kind of Shraddha he has acquired, that is due to the activities he has done in his previous life. He is born into certain modes. He is predominated by a mode of Tamoguna. He is predominated by a mode of Rajoguna. He is predominated by a mode of Sattva-guna. That depends on what he has done in his previous life and what kind of pious credits he has acquired. So that determines his nature. So that's why we see some people are favorable to, let's say, at least they are showing some interest to spiritual life. At least they are happy to receive. Devotees are happy to see. Some people are completely averse. They don't even want to look at them. They just run away. It's because of the nature that they have acquired from the previous life. So that cannot be discredited. That's for sure. Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, he points out that about Papa and Punya, what great role it plays in one's life. So he speaks that what are the different kinds of punyas and what are the different kinds of papa. It's a long, detailed explanation he gives during the Varnashrama system is being followed, how the pious activities were given importance, how people were engaged in pious activities, and what was the benefit that people were getting out of that. And also he explains about what is the real piety and what is it that will really help the human society to make perfection in one's life. Now, so he says that, and also the faith, by the nature that you acquired, everyone has got a certain kind of a faith, and that faith, for some people, the faith is very much towards enjoyment, material enjoyment, that pushes one for enjoying material things. For some people, the faith is towards, that kind of faith shows some inclinations towards renunciation. And he makes a point that there are some people who are who have some interest for sense enjoyment, some interest for renunciation. So he classifies it like that. And yeah, so these are and the faith works like that. Then he goes on to explain, as in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that in Shastra there are many injunctions for karmis and jnanis, especially for karmis, by which they can become pious and happy even in material life. So there are so many pious activities which are mentioned, as it is mentioned in this verse. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives more details. Well, it's a long thing, but at least I will list out some of the activities which are considered very pious. So he speaks about assistance to others, helping others in the society. You try to help others. Someone has got. There are some people with mental distress, people with physical distress, means they have different kinds of disease, some kind of ailments. Then there are people also who are, the root cause of all the distress is because of not identifying oneself as eternal servant of Krishna, and misidentifying with the body, and also that's the root cause of the distress. So he classifies, gives three kinds of distress as spiritual distress, social distress. Social distress is somebody does not have a job. There is financial problem. There is a fight between friends, fight between the family members. The marriage has not happened. So many things are there in the society. So all these kinds of distress are making a person unhappy. So he says that assistance to others. So in the Vedic way of life, people were so much united. They were helping each other. So he speaks about assistance to others. That's one kind of a piety. You help others, you get some pious credit for this. Then he speaks about service to elders. No, that's of course the Vedic tradition. The parents were taken care, grandmother, grandfather, other elder relatives were given respect. So this also he gives so many details about these points. So service to elders, and then he speaks about charity specifically to guests, whomsoever is. Some guests are coming. We are meeting some guests. Charity has to be performed. And also Krishna in the Gita, he points out a very important thing. He speaks about that in the practice of one's life, one should at no point of time give up the performance of yajna. One should not give up the performance of charity, dhana, and one should not give up the practice of austerities. And also, whatever situation he was in, one should not give up his duties as well. Krishna speaks about that. So Krishna says, yajna dhana tapa karma na tyajyam karyam eva tat. Never give it up, because whatever that you're doing, that is gradually helping you to make progress. Yajna dhanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. And then one other important point is that by engaging in these activities, you will not be engaged in sinful activity. When you are engaged in sinful activity, your chances of getting a human form of life is almost gone. You are again urdhvam gachanti sattvastha madhye tishtanti rajasah jaganna gunavrattascha adyo gachanti tamasah. Now if you know what happens, if you are engaged in pious activity, gradually you may go up, but then if you are going to be engaged in sinful activity, you're going to go down, you're going to slide down. So at least by following the Vedic path, you don't glide down. At least wherever you are there, and then gradually you are making progress. So the pious activity, that's what it does. Pious activity helps you to go up. Go up means what? One of the intention of many kind of pious activity is to go to the Svargaloka, have some enjoyment. So that's the thing. Now, yeah. So this is the point. Now he gives that as an example. Then he speaks about charity. So I just made the point that one should never give up. And also one other point that we can remember, that by engaging in charity, specifically for the householders, what happens is that generally there is a tendency to acquire many things, because you have to work, you have to earn money, and there is an attachment. So by you engaging in charity, yajna dhana tapaha, then what happens? You gradually become detached. So that's why it is very much recommended that those who are the householders should engage in charity. So that will help them to become detached. So that is also another reason. Then he goes on to explain about cultivation of cleanliness. He says that is also a pious activity. So he says internal cleanliness and also external cleanliness, and also not only external cleanliness. He speaks about cleanliness of the entire society. For example, you are in a community, you are in a colony, you are in your street, your place. Everything should be kept clean. And if you make endeavors for that, and you acquire some piety for that. Then he speaks about celebration of festivals, and he specifically speaks about festival means the first priority. He speaks about there is a temple worshipping of Vishnu. There are various festivals, and also there are family festivals. Local festivals are there. Family festivals means it could be so it could be a graha pravesham. It could be so many other family rituals are there, and also there you have to perform according to the Vedic life. You have to perform certain activity that is being. He mentions that also acquire piety. And then he speaks about performance of vows. There are so many different kinds of vratas one can take up. Specifically for devotees, their vrata is the adherence to the four regulative principles. We follow the ekadasis. We fast on the appearance of the Lord's various incarnations, and also the Lord's devotees. We also fast on Janmashtami and other things. He also speaks about other austerities, because what's the idea? By performing these kinds of vrata, one, the tendency to enjoy sense gratification is gradually given up. Although maybe for some people the motive may be what is in store for me, what I'm going to get, but at least some step he's taking, not completely being immersed in ignorance. He takes some step to follow some kind of austerities. Then another important thing, he's speaking about protection of animals, and he very specifically, now protection of animals means everybody thinks of taking care of the dogs and like that. But actually he mainly specifically points out protection of animals means taking care of the cows, taking care of the bulls, and how they have to be very nicely protected. They have to be fed nicely. They have to be we should see that the breeding also happens. That also he gives some specifications how on certain particular days, on some Shraddha ceremony days and other days, the breeding should happen. So many details he explains, and also one acquires piety by that. Then he speaks about increase of population. So that also in a very pious way it should be done, he says. And also we can see, we are just going through the first chapter of the Gita, how Arjuna is concerned about proper progeny. If there is no proper progeny, then it is Varna Sankara. Then the society is chaotic, horrible society. We do not know what to do. To whom we can relate to, whom we can move, what is their habits, what are their natures. It's really very demoniac civilization. That's what is going on. So he speaks about that is also a responsibility of a pious person to, in a proper way, increase of population. And then he gives so many list of things about proper conduct. All these things attributes to piety. Now, so these are so many details that are given in the Varnashrama Dharma principles. Now we will come back to that again. What is a proper perspective? So what devotees should do? So we can totally ignore all these things, or how much it is required. We will try to understand. Now Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in some of the purports, specifically on the instructions of pure devotional service, there is a discussion about various piety. We will just a little bit discuss about that. Before we get into that, we'll like to discuss how Srila Prabhupada also further points out in this, in this commentary, he speaks about, according to Vedic civilization, one should perform activities for the benefit of the public, such as constructing public roads, planting trees on both sides of the road, so that people can walk in the shade, and constructing public wells, so that everyone can take water without difficulty. Now, why this is being mentioned here, this kind of welfare activities? This, again, the tendency is that aham mameti, I am the enjoyer, everything is for me. That propensity is given up. And then gradually you think of the welfare of others. This is one level. One is always thinking I, me, mine. One cannot think more than that. Another level is, it could be extended selfishness as well. It's my society, my family, my place, my country. But then that is one step ahead also, because from simply being I, me, mind consciousness, one has gone one step ahead. So by doing all these activities, you are thinking of someone else's welfare. Also, you can see in the gradations of bhakti, in the 12th chapter of the Gita, Krishna gives instruction how one should be completely absorbed in him. He calls that as the first level of, that is the expectation Krishna has. One should be totally absorbed in him. Then he says that if one cannot do that, then at least you follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga and then gradually come to that level. Then he says that even if one cannot be in that level, then you simply engage in my service. Then he goes to the next level. He says that at least help those who are engaged in that service in a monetary way, in a physical way, whatever you can do, help. Then finally Krishna says, okay, at least you engage in some kind of a social service. All these not promoting that. He says that at least, from you come out of that whole consciousness of I, me, mine. So that will gradually help. And there is a secret in all these things. Just by doing this pious activity, this alone will not bring you to the lotus feet of Krishna. This pious activity may create a favorable situation to a person, and he may become favorable to see a devotee, or he may be ready to give some oral reception to a devotee, because devotion, the root cause of devotion is from a devotee. Krishna's desire is completely understood by a devotee, and when someone comes in touch with a devotee, then the Bhakti Lata Bij is planted. So that is the secret. So we will discuss about that more. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami, on this particular verse, he makes a point that how the items that is, he amazingly says that, Srila Prabhupada also points out that in the purport. He specifically points out that, now in this verse he speaks about tapasya. If you see the first word that is being used, kimnas tapaschirnam, for a long time engaged in tapasya. So he points out that this tapasya, he says that this is because this is actually following of the Ekadasi Vrata, or following the Vrata for Janmashtami and like that. So he points out that is the tapasya. He is pointing everything directly to devotional service. Then he points out, he immediately relates a verse because the word adokshaja is used here. Adokshaja archanam. So adokshaja archanam, immediately he says that, so when one is engaged in archanam of adokshaja, so what we immediately remember, savai pumsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adokshaja ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So anyone who is engaged in the loving devotional service of the Lord without any motive and without any interruption, then that leads to yatma suprasidati, that person becomes happy. So he says that definitely, so that's what he actually is referring to. They have engaged in adokshaja archanam. So then he gives a different list of the austerities that is being pointed out here, and that we discussed, all these different austerities being mentioned here. That purta refers to building canals, wells, ponds, temples. One other interesting point, he says that all these things also he is referring to Krishna conscious practice. How is that? He says there is a temple, one may help in building the wall of the temple, one may help in building, water facilities being arranged in the temple. So that is also engagement in devotional service. So this is what he points out. Then now as we pointed out in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is an amazing discussion on this pure devotional service. So in that, Srila Prabhupada discusses about the different kinds of sukruti, or the piety that is being mentioned here. Now this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, verse 43, verse 44. The conditioned souls are wandering throughout the different planets of the universe, entering various species of life. By good fortune, one of these souls may somehow or other be delivered from the ocean of nescience, just as one of the many big logs in a flowing river may by chance reach the bank. Now, we have to understand what is our situation in this material world. We are completely immersed in ignorance, and we have totally identified ourselves with this body, and we take into reality this body is all in all, and we do not know what is happening in our life, where we are destined, what is going on, what is our destination, what is in store for me. We have no clue. All that we know in this modern way of life is to simply gratify our senses. That's what we know. That is how we are being trained from day one that we have experience of this material world. So, but then here in this verse, a glimpse is given that somehow or other a person may get a direction to go towards the perfection of life. So by accident it can happen. So then Kaviraj Goswami explains, he says that because I am so fallen, I shall never get a chance to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This was my false apprehension. These are the words of Akrura. Rather by chance, a person as fallen as I am may get to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although one is being carried away by the waves of the river of time, one may eventually reach the shore. So one is caught in the big ocean. The waves are taking him in different directions. But by some fortune, one may be able to see the Lord, he says. Now, what is a good fortune? He goes on to explain. Kono bhagya karo samsara shayan mukha hai sadhu sange tabe krishne rati upajay. So, how that good fortune happens to a person? That good fortune happens by sadhu sangha, tabe krishna rati upajay. By good fortune, one becomes eligible to cross the ocean of nescience. And when one's term of material existence decreases, one may get an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. So this is the whole key, the whole secret of devotional service. The association of a pure devotee kindles the dormant attraction one has for Krishna. Every one of us, we have attraction for the Supreme Lord, but we have no clue. At this point of time, sometimes we are not even able to perceive it because of the conditioning we are into. But that is being kindled, as it is mentioned here, Krishna Rati Upajay. So the Rati for Krishna is evoked by the association of a pure devotee. Now, in this particular verse, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada points out to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he says, I would just like to read a few points because it's very interesting. He says, pious activities can be divided into three categories. Pious activities that awaken one's dormant Krishna consciousness, which are called Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. Those activities by which are directly related with Krishna, to the process of devotional service to his devotees, that is Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. So whenever we say pious activity, sometimes we get confused. Piety, we say piety, whenever Prabhupada refers, sometimes piety refers to this Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. But there is also another piety, as in this verse that we saw, building wells, opening, planting trees, and then opening shades, giving water, giving food. These are also piety, but these pieties are sometimes performed for one's own benefit or one's own welfare. So that is, what is that called as? That also Prabhupada points out here. He calls that as pious activities that bestow material opulence are called Bhogon Mukhi Sukriti. So Bhogon Mukhi Sukriti is you expect some kind of a benefit, but you want to do it in a pious way. And so what is happening by doing such kind of activity? You are not engaged in sinful act. That is at least putting you in some framework wherein you don't degrade yourself. So Bhogon Mukhi Sukriti. And pious activities that enable the living entity to merge into the existence of the Supreme are called Mokshon Mukhi Sukriti. Now again, as in the beginning, we were discussing the point that because of the faith one has acquired, someone who may be interested, a person has got to be interested to perform some activities by which he can engage in some, he wants material enjoyment. Someone has got some interest towards renunciation. Right? Now, those are the people, when the Mokshon Mukhi Sukriti is referred to the people who are jnanis. They also have self-interest. Their self-interest is to get rid of the problems or the difficulties and then simply merge with the Brahman, or just be aloof from everything and then try to enjoy happiness like that. So that's also not the perfection. So that's called as Mokshon Mukhi Sukriti. So Prabhupada points out these last two awards of pious activity are not actually fortunate. Pious activities are fortunate when they help one become Krishna conscious. So this is the whole point. We should not be carried away by studying about various pious activity, because in the Varnashrama system there is different levels for different people. People are having different souls are with different desires. So gradually it is helping a person to come up in different levels. But then the acharyas are giving the what is the real piety one has to be engaged in, how that will help one to make powerful progress. So that's why we see Prabhupada many times we hear Srila Prabhupada points out that somebody may, in fact, what is this Agyata Sukriti means? Unknowingly engaged in devotional service. That is what is Agyata Sukriti. So the more a person is engaged in that activity, and as it keeps piling up, then the Komal Shraddha, the Shraddha sprouts. Then one becomes interested. He comes in the association of devotees. He engages in some service. He shows interest to hear about Krishna Katha. That is what the mission of the Hare Krishna movement is, to somehow or other help people to come in touch with devotees and the process of Krishna consciousness by engaging them in chanting the names of the Lord, honoring the prasadam that is the bhoga that is offered to the Lord, which is the Lord mercifully gives us prasadam, and invoking the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, Krishna Katha, by which the ignorance is shattered. So that is the whole process. So the Prabhupada points out in the purport, the good fortune of Bhakti Unmukhi is attainable only when one comes in contact with the devotee. By associating with the devotee, willingly or unwillingly, one advances in devotional service. Thus, one's dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened. Now, I'm specifically going through these some of the verses because now, specifically for the devotees, throughout the year, those devotees who are absorbed in distributing books, who are engaged in preaching, they very well know what is the importance of Krishna consciousness, how people really need Krishna consciousness. Nothing else is going to make people happy. People are suffering in the material world. Now, it's a good meditation for us because the marathon is coming up, and sometimes, we may think, what is this? We are just going out, ritual, kind of a ritual. We are giving books, but we ourselves do not know what we are doing. We are simply instruments in Prabhupada's mission. We are actually creating this bhakti unma, this agyata sukriti is being created. People touch a book, people see a devotee, people even they may not buy a book, they may just see here and there, devotee pushes, you just don't, just see this shloka, see this picture. Some interest is developed. You can think of the soul which is wandering in millions and millions of lifetimes. So many places he has tried so many things. But this touch with devotee, it's so rare. And these verses actually explains that. We can see here. Again, Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami is pointing out from Bhagavatam. He says, "O my Lord, O infallible Supreme Person, when a person wandering throughout the universes becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the topmost devotees, and the Lord of the universe." So this is again an emphasis that this happens. Krishna, we are far away from Krishna, but this connection happens only through the pure devotee. So that's the whole point. Then Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami goes on to explain. So how the mercy flows. Now we know this famous verse again from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Bhai Bhakti Lata Bij. So one gets the seed of devotional service. He's wandering in so many universes. The Jiva has wandered in so many universes. After several lifetimes, millions of lifetimes, one comes in contact with the pure devotee of the Lord, who is a spiritual master. So the Lord mercifully manifests. Here Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami says, Krishna Jadi Kripa Kare Kono Bhagyavan Guru Antarjami Rupe Shikaya Apan. So he says that Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, and he comes as Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within. And when the soul becomes fortunate, so by fortune what happens? So what happens? The Lord from within also gives directions, gives him interest to progress in devotion. So sometimes when we see people, so many Prabhupada memories we heard, devotees, they heard devotees chanting Hare Krishna, or they just saw a devotee and they are completely, their interest kindled. They come in search of devotee. They meet the devotee, or they get some prasadam. So many amazing stories are there where people, how they came in touch with Krishna consciousness, how they got the fire of Krishna consciousness. So that is being mentioned. And here we see the Lord also gives direction. You go there, go and meet that person. So like that. So he is acting as spiritual master within and spiritual master externally also. Now, so now in this situation, again the importance of sadhu sangha is explained. Sadhu sange Krishna bhakti shraddha jadi hoy, bhakti fal prema hoy, samsara jayakshay. So he says that by associating with the devotee, one's faith is kindled. Devotional service to Krishna is kindled by the association with the devotee. Because of devotional service, one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, and thus one's material conditioned existence comes to an end. So that's the whole key. Now, Krishna in the Bhagavatam, he again points out, so he says that somehow or other, if one is attracted to the talks about me, Krishna says to Uddhava, he says, Yadrichaya mat katadho, jata shraddhas tuyapman, na nirvinno nati shakto, bhakti yogosya siddhidaha. So he says that, so by somehow or other developing interest to hear about my instructions, now Krishna has spoken in the Bhagavad Gita, the various instructions are given in the Bhagavatam, then by that instruction, what happens? one gradually develops detachment to this material world. Right? That's what happens. Now we are attached to the material world. We are bound up in illusion. So Krishna says that here in this particular verse, he says, Na nirvinnaha. And by getting proper knowledge, one can see things in proper perspective. What is sat, what is asat, what is right, what is wrong, what is favorable, what is unfavorable. He is able to see things in proper perspective. And because of that proper perspective, Krishna says here, Na nirvinnaha, na atishaktaha. Because when we try to see things in proper perspective, that means what? We are gradually coming out of illusion. And na atishaktaha means he does not become too much enamored by material existence. Or his priority in life completely shifts from thinking of what is I, me, mine, what is the future for me, how I can presently enjoy. From that, his perspective completely changes. He thinks that he immediately gets an understanding that I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, I'm now conditioned, now I need to engage in pure devotional service. The more he is directed towards that. So that's what here Krishna is pointing out. And Krishna gives the strength to develop such attitude. And further he helps a devotee to progress in devotional service. He says, Mat kripa vina kona karma bhakti nai, Krishna bhakti dure rahu, samsara nahekshai. Unless one is favored by a pure devotee, one cannot attain the platform of devotional service. To say nothing of Krishna bhakti, one cannot even be relieved from the bondage of material existence. This is the point. So what's the point? Prabhupada very nicely points out in the purport to this. He says, pious activities bring about material opulence, but one cannot acquire devotional service by any amount of material pious activity. So this we have to be very clear. No, let me do this, let me do that, dan, let me do this, no, I will. This has got nothing to do with bhakti. Now by doing this, I will get. So Krishna says, Esham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrataha. So what is in that verse, we have to very clearly understand. Now what happens, how a person develops such a strong faith? Because as long as we are tinged with sinful activities and the reactions of sinful life, that strong determination to engage in devotional service does not occur. Now, so the pious activity that Krishna is mentioning, that it's not he's saying that you engage in various pious activities, by that your Shraddha will be strong. No, it's not like that. One Shraddha will build up only when one engages in devotional service, and that engagement in devotional service happens by the touch of a pure devotee. So, Bhakti Shraddhaya, Bhakti Sanjayate Bhaktya. The pure devotion arises from a devotee actually, that's what it is. Because a devotee fully understands the heart of the Supreme Lord. So this is a very important philosophical point. We should not be carried away thinking that let me engage in this pious activity, let me do this dana, that dana. Then no, it's not that. But that's why Prabhupada in the purport is very clearly speaking about Bhakti Unmukha Sukriti, then Moksha Unmukha Sukriti and Bhoga Unmukha Sukriti. We have to understand very clearly. Now you can see in this purport, Prabhupada further points out, pious activities bring about material opulence, but one cannot acquire devotional service by any amount of material pious activity, not by giving charity, opening big hospitals and schools, or working philanthropically. So sometimes we see, when we go out, asking for some donations or for help of the mission, they say, do you have any school? Are you opening any schools? Are you running any hospitals? No, are you doing something practical for the people? That's the general understanding of people. They have this understanding, but they have no clue about what is pure devotion. They think that this is what, because they only see things within this material world. They don't know anything more than that. But this is all these activities just binds a person. Maybe he may get a pious credit for that activity. At the max, he can go to Swargaloka. And also we heard, just 2 Sundays back, to go to Swargaloka, what kind of a piety one should have performed. How much punya one should have. Forget about it. 100 lifetimes one should not have spoken lie. One should have engaged in all various piety that we have seen on all kinds of these activities. One should have engaged. After hearing that, that we can see that, my God, I am Swarga. Swarga is somewhere. I am not even going to go to some higher planet above this. It's something very high. In Kali Yuga, people are, for every small thing they speak a lie. Day morning begins in speaking a lie only. That's how it begins. So what kind of piety we have in Kali Yuga is really a very bad situation. So Prabhupada goes on to point out, devotional service can be attained only by the mercy of a pure devotee. Without a pure devotee's mercy, one cannot even escape the bondage of material existence. So this is the whole point. So then, 2 key verses, again to remind us, it's an amazing point in the section of the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj, he points out that he is speaking to Hiranyakashipu. He says that, what is this? You can never understand anything about Krishna Bhakti, neither by someone's advice, or on your own, or when a group of people come and then meet, when you discuss about you, this will never arise in your heart, because you are always engaged, completely absorbed in sense gratification. After saying all these things, then he concludes that whole section saying that how one can develop pure devotion. What is it that one has to do? So just to save time, I'm not going to read those verses. It's a famous verse. I'm just going to tell the essential point. The essential point is that he says that one should take the dust of a pure devotee, and then Pada Rajobhishekam, he says that. Just take the dust and then apply it on your head. So you may ask, is it literally we need to do that? Yes, you can do literally also. But the most important thing, we have to follow the instructions of the pure devotee. So we may be throughout 24 hours keep doing that. But try to follow what the pure devotee says. Follow the principles of pure devotional service as given by the pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada. Then, this is so important that in 2 verses he makes this point. Then he says that Naisham Matistavad Urukramangrim. So he says that again he makes the same point. Mahi Yasham Pada Rajobhishekam. In 2 verses. So sorry, in 1 verse that's being spoken on the Bharat Maharaj section. In another verse this is being mentioned. So this is the conclusion of our entire Siddhanta. All the Siddhanta, he just comes to the conclusion that we have to get the mercy of the pure devotee. Because by the mercy of the pure devotee, we will be bestowed with transcendental knowledge. By that transcendental knowledge, we will be able to practice pure devotional service, and we will be able to come out of the conditioning. And in this section, this famous verse is being mentioned. Sadhu Sange, Sarva Shastra Kai. Lava Matra Sadhu Sange, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Lava Matra means it's defined as 1/10 or 1/11 of a second. This much association of a pure devotee can bring a great revolution in one's life. And we can see those who met Prabhupada, their life changed. And then the Bhagavatam also points out that, Tulya nama lavenapi na swargam na punar bhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya martyanam kim utashishaha. So he says the value of a moment's association of a pure devotee cannot be compared even to the attainment of heavenly planets or attaining liberation. Or any kind of material prosperity. So that is the conclusion of the scriptures. Now another very interesting point, Srila Prabhupada in the conclusion of the purport, he points out that one should perform austerity to control one's desires, and one must simultaneously worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one becomes pious, and as a result, one is happy even in material conditions of life. Now this is the key point here. So one has to engage in worshipping Supreme Lord means engagement in devotional service, and we have do's and don'ts, right, in devotional service. Now, following 4 regulative principles, it's an austerity. That is the bare minimal austerity we are expected to practice. So that's what Prabhupada says that. So that's why if you see in this verse, in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, Prabhupada translates it as Rasavarja. What's that one? Ragadvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indriyaishcharan atma vishtair videyatma prasadam adhigacchati. So how to invoke that mercy? So he says that Ragadvesha vimuktaistu vishayan indriyaishcharan. Prabhupada in the translation he says by following the regulative principles of freedom. How is that? By controlling the mind and controlling the senses, following the regulative principles. How it is freedom? Yes, that is freedom. For materialistic people, they think that we are mad people. What is this? So many restrictions. But for a devotee, he clearly understands that by controlling the mind, controlling the senses, following the 4 regulative principles of freedom, he is not engaged in sinful activity. His mind is purified. His senses are purified. And then it becomes very favorable to engage in devotional service. It's a fact, right? Unless our mind and senses are purified, we can't, with steadfastness, with Ekeha Kurunandana, we can't engage in devotional service. That's why the do's and don'ts are there. So why the rules and regulations are there? We can't ignore these rules and regulations. Simply we talk about just love Krishna, just from the bottom of your heart, you simply love Krishna. It doesn't work like that. So that is for a spontaneous Raganuga Bhakta. But we are conditioned in this material world. So we need to follow all these rules and regulations. And we know by following all these rules and regulations, we are regulated. There is a discipline. And then we become, and the key factor is that engagement in devotional service, chanting the names of the Lord, hearing the Bhagavatam, studying Prabhupada's books, preaching the Krishna consciousness, going out and distributing books, bringing people to the lotus feet of Krishna, helping them to come for the festivals, and preaching about Krishna consciousness. So all these things are important aspects of devotional service. That is what will give happiness to the people. So Prabhupada's very nice, Srila Prabhupada very nicely concludes. So he specifically points out that piety, he says, becomes pious means, so one becomes a devotee, one takes up to the piety of devotional service, and as a result, a person can be happy. Now, yeah, just one last thing. I just want to, I know it's time, but just one last thing I want to conclude. In the Yaksha Prashna of the Mahabharata, you can see there are so many questions that is being asked by Yaksha to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And there are very interesting last 4 questions are being asked. In that he is speaking about, because Srila Prabhupada is speaking here about being happy even in the material conditions of life. There is one question Yaksha is asking, who is truly happy? He's asking a question. So Yudhishthira Maharaj gives the answer that he says that one who can cook in his own home, that means that he is eating food which is cooked in the house. Then he says that one who refrains from tamasic food, not eating outside, eating. Then one who has no debts, he says. It is no debts. He can be happy. Then he says that one who does not come out of home for his livelihood. That means he's speaking that one should not go far away to get his livelihood. Yeah, and then he says that one should not overstrive for material things. So the 4 things he says. So one should cook in his home. Now literally we can see in the modern age, the fast foods, hotels, in the office you have cafeterias, everything. People are actually really, they don't even have time to eat. This is the reality. People are struggling. Materially also they are not happy actually. People are having, so I just saw recently in Udupi also, they're somewhere in one corner, they're selling cup noodles, It has become so popular. People just buy it, they just do some programs, sit and then eat. So that is the situation. One cannot be happy. How is it possible? Then he says that now we can see, previously there is no concept of loans. Now so much loans. Every bank, everywhere loans are being promoted. People want to take so much loan, and then they see the salary is so high. But so how much money you have? I don't have anything. I don't have any money because all the money is given for loans. He has, very happy to have a credit card, but there is no credit. You have lost all your credit. This is what is happening. Then he speaks about, and we know how people are traveling so far to go for the job. They are traveling 2 hours, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. Now we can see here from here also in Salem, we had 3.3 hours buses. I saw one person, he's working in Bangalore 3 days or 4 days a week. He just goes early morning, 5 o'clock, goes to the office, and then he comes back. There are so many places, that people are suffering and struggling. So this is the reality in this material world. So we need to go out, distribute books, help people, tell them what is the reality, and really give Srila Prabhupada to them. And there is one very interesting thing, without Srila Prabhupada, our life would have been a really disaster actually. Srila Prabhupada's mercy is what is saved us, and it will save generations to come. And I was just recently reading Jai Srila Prabhupada. In this context, it was very interesting. There was one devotee is asking Srila Prabhupada, why has it taken so long for a pure devotee to come to the West? Has the West been so sinful that no pure devotee has come before your divine grace? Then Prabhupada laughs and then he says, don't be sorry. At that time you were so sinful that you could not receive a pure devotee. Then, just on the contrary, there is another conversation. Prabhupada says, one girl is asking Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, would you please explain why Krishna consciousness hadn't come to the West until now? Why it hasn't come earlier? Then Prabhupada says, because you were not born. After your birth, we have come here to take you back home, back to Godhead. Now take the opportunity, come with us. We were waiting for your birth. So Prabhupada is a savior, and we have to please Prabhupada. We have to go out, distribute books, and we can at least theoretically understand that this what we are doing, even for ourselves, it's a great purification, and we are helping people to take up Krishna consciousness. So we'll stop here. Any questions or comments or realizations? Yes, Prabhu. Yes. 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 Hmm. Correct. Yes. Yeah, I got it. I got your point. Yes. So the question is that we are going out for during Janmashtami, and we are asking people, many people, for donations, and yeah, some of them are helping, and then and in turn they come for asking us for donation for the local demigod festival and other programs. So what is our response? How do we do? So yes, that is why we have to preach. We have to explain to them what is pure devotion, and what are we doing as in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. By collecting this donation, we are engaging people in devotional service. So yes, gradually we have to preach. We cannot just be silent, and then we cannot avoid this. We have to very clearly say, and then help them also. Help them also try to understand what is the real Krishna consciousness. We have to preach and we have to explain that why we don't participate in demigod festivals, why we don't go for demigod programs, and what is the difference between demigod worship and what is the difference between worship of the Supreme Lord. All those things we need to preach. We need to very clearly explain to them. Two things can happen. One is the person, very first time in his life, he will be exposed to pure devotional service, and gradually he will think and he may come forward, or he may be at a distance. But nevertheless, we have to speak the fact. People are receptive when we present Krishna consciousness as it is and as Srila Prabhupada has given. They'll become favorable. We have to present it in a very nice way and then explain to them like that. Anything else? We'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.